Now I give the floor to Ms. Bintou Keita.
Mr. President, distinguished members of the Council, His Excellency the Permanent Representative of the Democratic Republic of the Congo, His Excellency the Permanent Representative of the Republic of Rwanda. I thank you for the opportunity to brief this Council. Peace in the Democratic Republic of the Congo is still mostly a promise. There are discrepancies between the progress we see on paper and the reality we observe on the ground, which continues to be marred with violence.
Allow me, first of all, to underscore the progress that has been achieved since 27th of June. Several important milestones have been reached. Several countries and organizations from the region, including the United States, Qatar, African Union, East African Community, and the Southern African Development Community have been involved in a very concrete way to promote peace. The parties to the conflict are also involved in peace negotiations. Following the signature of the Washington Agreement on the 27th of June, 2 meetings of the Joint Monitoring Mechanism and the Joint Security Coordination Mechanism were held. The negotiations in Doha have resumed. They have led to a signature in July of a declaration of principle between the government of the DRC and the AFC M23. Facilitators from the African Union were able to meet women, community leaders, and representatives of civil society. All these are essential actors to achieve an inclusive peace. However, peace has been slow to be felt on the ground. Since June, MONUSCO has recorded some 1,087 civilians killed in violence in the areas of Ituri and North Kivu, and this toll is growing day by day. Mr. President, within the country, an initiative aimed at promoting internal dialogue has been seen. Is led by the main religious confessions and supported by President Felix Tshisekedi. It has already produced concrete results. A roadmap published in August is a decisive step, expanding the civic space and strengthening social cohesion are extremely important. Without this, the general elections of 2028 will not be able to take place in an atmosphere of security and trust. I call on all political leaders to demonstrate tolerance, to condemn hate speech wherever it comes from, to opt for dialogue. At the same time, I urge the population of the country to refrain from engaging in such rhetoric and not to spread disinformation and misinformation.
On 21st February, this Council sent a clear message to all parties through the adoption of Resolution 2773. In particular, the resolution called for an immediate and unconditional cessation of hostilities and urged the AFC M23 to stop fighting, withdraw from Goma, Bukavu, and all other controlled areas, and end its parallel administration. 8 months later, the key provisions of Resolution 2773 remain largely unimplemented. Despite the Council's request, the AFC M23 have continued to pursue a logic of territorial expansion and consolidation. Since taking Goma, the AFC M23 have replaced formal institutions with alternative structures, leaving institutions across North and South Kivu provinces weakened. More than 7,000 new recruits have undergone military training over the past 7 months in AFC M23 camps. From June onwards, MONUSCO has received numerous requests for personal protection in AFC M23 controlled territories. In Rutshuru territory, July was the deadliest month since the group's resurgence end of November 21. This underscores the persisting gap between the decisions of this Council and the realities on the ground. I call upon the Council and all partners to bring about a permanent ceasefire and a durable peace agreement that will establish stability in Eastern DRC. Only then will commitments be translated into meaningful progress for the people. MONUSCO, for its part, remains fully committed to supporting ongoing peace efforts and stands ready to play its role in supporting the implementation of a permanent ceasefire, provided it receives a clear mandate from this Council and the resources to match expectations. Monsieur le Président.
Mr. President, nevertheless, the violence is not the domain of a single armed group. The Allied Democratic Forces, ADF, have continued their attacks in North Kivu and in Ituri, linked to the Islamic State province of Central Africa. The ADF have executed some 300 civilians over the past 3 months. The ADF have targeted solemn occasions such as religious services and funerals. Men, women, and children have been killed, wounded, or abducted. In Ituri, also, the clashes between the Convention for Popular Revolution, CRP, and the Congolese army have also added to the heavy toll. Attacks by the Cooperative for the Development of Congo, CODECO, continue, and unfortunately civilians are trapped in the crossfire. And during the night between Sunday and Monday, MONUSCO had to shelter some 3,500 people in its base at Gina after clashes between the CRP and the FARDC. In this context, I urge all armed groups that are taking part in the Aru-2 peace dialogue in Ituri to live up to their commitments and to release the 400 children that they are still detained. In South Kivu, the situation with human rights is extremely concerning. Although this province is no longer covered by the operational mandate of MONUSCO since July of 2024, the situation unfolding there requires the attention of the Council. The Wazalendo and allied armed groups continue to operate in complete impunity, and grave violations and abuses of human rights have persisted. MONUSCO continues to record very serious abuses and violations, including sexual violence related to conflict. We know, however, that all the cases have not been registered. In the areas controlled by AFC M23, restrictions on the freedom of movement further reduce our ability to conduct inquiries on the ground. The joint UN Office for Human Rights must have access to these areas in order to monitor the human rights situation in conformity with the mandate entrusted to it by the Council. On this point, I would encourage the deployment of the independent fact-finding mission immediately. All the financing for it is still pending.
Challenging environment restricts the mission's ability to implement its mandate. Obstacles undermine our protection efforts, especially in Goma and other areas under AFC M23 control. Fuel and food supplies are delayed. Many troop rotations are still blocked. Exhausted contingents remain in place for several months. Electricity and water cuts cripple bases and life support systems. Goma Airport is still closed. It is essential that contingent rotations resume in full, that movement restrictions be lifted, and that across access to critical infrastructure be guaranteed. Without these conditions, in Goma, MONUSCO cannot fully deliver the protection mandate entrusted by this Council. in this area. Humanitarian actors also have their own struggles, roadblocks, shrinking access, and attacks. Here lies another critical discrepancy. Civilians in urgent need of assistance, while aid delivery is constrained. Despite this complex setting, MONUSCO continues to protect civilians where possible. Our bases shelter communities under imminent threat. On 18 September, at least 600 women, men, girls, and boys took shelter in trenches at the MONUSCO base in Drodro during clashes between Codeco and Zaire. Joint patrols with FRDC in North Kivu along the Beni-Erengeti route deterred armed groups and increased protection for villagers and displaced people. Beyond these immediate responses, MONUSCO's broader presence also provides communities a greater sense of safety. During the last visit to Eastern DRC in September of the Undersecretary General for Peace Operations, Mr. Jean-Pierre Lacroix, we witnessed firsthand how the mission's presence helps contain other attacks and offers communities much-needed respite. Peacekeepers are engaged in clearing explosive hazards, practical steps that make daily life safer for the population. The Joint Human Rights Office handled over 500 protection cases this year. It safeguarded journalists, lawyers, and human rights defenders. It assisted almost 400 victims of conflict-related sexual violence in Goma and Bukavu. Local partners ensured continuity of psychosocial support. The mission activated hotlines in conflict-affected areas. Victims can now have access to urgent care. Beyond immediate protection, we see other signs of progress. Consultations between the mission and the leadership of the Ugandan People's Defense Force, UPDF, have improved coordination and reduced risk of overlap in operations. With MONUSCO support, 12 foreign ex-combatants affiliated with the FDLR and the Nyatura armed group and their 17 dependents were repatriated. In Djougou and Irumu, 300 ex-combatants and 622 community members now have better chances for long-term reintegration through the mission support projects. MONUSCO also supports communities directly. In Bunia, the women-led collective des Femmes de l'Ituri brought some Hema and Lendu communities together. Thanks to their mediation, tensions eased and both groups now share grazing lands and markets without incident. This is fragile progress, but progress that matters. This model deserves support and replication. On security sector reform, I welcome the new police programming law signed in July by President Tshisekedi. It is a 2.55 billion plan to professionalize and modernize the Congolese National Police by 2030. The law calls for major investment in infrastructure, recruitment, training, and capacity building. Despite challenges, MONUSCO support also judicial authorities. In Lubero, North Kivu, we established mobile courts. 20 FRDC soldiers were convicted for sexual violence, a step toward greater accountability. But peace will not last if the underlying drivers of conflict are not addressed. Illegal mining, looting of natural resources, and illicit financial flows continue to fuel violence. These activities must be stopped. Monsieur le Président.
Mr. President, the security situation is becoming increasingly complex. As the world marks the 25th anniversary of Resolution 1325, Congolese women must be included in any solution. Their voices and contributions are essential to build a lasting peace in the eastern part of the country and in the Great Lakes region. The involvement of MONUSCO, although meaningful, cannot alone respond to all the urgent needs on the ground. In a context marked by a new outbreak of the Ebola epidemic in the province of Kasai, the humanitarian crisis in the Democratic Republic of the Congo has reached a critical threshold. To date, the humanitarian response plan has only received 15.2% of required financing compared to 41% at the same time last year. The withdrawal of certain major donors has led to a collapse in financing. As a result, over 27.7 million people are facing food insecurity, including 5.7 million in Ituri and North Kivu. In certain places, aid has been suspended. Fewer people will receive assistance. For others, their rations will be reduced. Maternal mortality is increasing. The gap is growing between vital needs and the resources available.
The many gaps I have described today affect negatively the population. Closing the gaps is not optional. It is the only way to protect lives and give peace a chance in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Resolutions matter only if they are matched by concrete actions on the ground. If we fail to close these gaps, millions of civilians will continue to pay the price. I thank you.
I thank Ms. Keita for her briefing.